What's up, guys? This is Richie here with Satisfying Football. This is Week 12 college football. These are your 3:30 to 7:30 games and midday games. There's a bunch of them, so let's jump into it. Ohio State is taking on Rutgers. Ohio State's coming off a huge victory over Maryland, 73-14. Justin Fields looking like a Heisman candidate, 200 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, plus 1 rushing. Master Teague ran for 111, but they put up 705 yards of offense. Defense had 7 sacks, only allowed 139 yards. They had 2 turnovers. Rutgers coming off a bye. Their last game was a 38-10 killing by Illinois. They did run for 185 yards, but that was about it. They had 271 total. They had 3 turnovers. If Ohio State put up 73 in Maryland, I can't imagine what they're going to do to Rutgers. This is Ohio State. This will be a showcase game. Everybody's going to get a stat. Everybody's going to play. This is Ohio State. All right, pretty big game in the ACC. Wake Forest. They've been ranked most this season. Their offense is one of the best in the country. They did get upset by Virginia Tech last week. They lost 36-17. They're taking on Clemson though. Jamie Newman, not a very good game. 16 of 35, 238, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Kendall Hinton, 8 catches, 162 yards. They only had 301 yards. They turned it over twice. Defense did force 2 turnovers, but they weren't able to win that. Clemson killed North Carolina State 55-10. Trevor Lawrence, 276 passing, 3 touchdowns, plus 59 rushing and a touchdown. Travis Etienne, Etienne, 112 rushing, 2 touchdowns, 549 total. Defense had 4 turnovers, only allowed 290 yards. Clemson did have 10 penalties. So in a game like this, where Wake Forest may be able to move it a little bit, Clemson, they can't hurt themselves. That being said, I think Clemson, early in the season, I was not high on them. They've been playing really well the last few games. This will be a really fun game. This will be Clemson. I'm going to put on upset alert, though. I do like Wake Forest. Their offense can put it up on anybody, I think. But I will go Clemson in the end to win. All right, Georgia and Auburn, huge game in the SEC and nationally. Georgia got to number 4 in the playoff playoff committee's last bowl. Auburn's number 12. Georgia coming out 27-0 win over Missouri. Jake Fromm, not very good though. 13 of 29, 173, 2 touchdowns. They ran for 166. Their defense was great though, pitching the shutout, only allowing 198 yards. Auburn's coming off a bye. Their last game was a 20-14 win over Ole Miss. Bo Nix, 344 passing and 1 rushing. They put up 507 yards. This is going to be a really, really close game. It has Georgia by 2.5. It's at Auburn. I'm going to go Auburn. Auburn's defense has impressed me all year. Georgia's still been pretty inconsistent, especially offensively. I think this might be kind of a low scoring, maybe like a, 24-20 kind of game. I'm going to go Auburn though in the end. All right, Memphis taking on Houston. Possible shootout here. Memphis though, trying to get to a New Year's 6 bowl game out of the group of 5. They're coming off a bye. Their last game was that huge college game day win against SMU where they beat them 54-48. Brady White threw for 350 and 3 touchdowns. DeMonte Cox had 7 catches, 143 and 3 touchdowns. Antonio Gibson, this stat line, 6 catches, 130 yards and a touchdown, 97 rushing yards and a touchdown, and a kick return for a touchdown. He scored in 3 different ways. Defense had 3 sacks. They put up 514 yards. They did have 16 penalties in the game. That shouldn't hurt them against Houston, but they need to clean it up, especially for their future American Athletic Conference games. They're going to take on Houston. Houston's coming off a bye. The last game was against UCF. They played pretty well in the first half, then they lost 44-29. Clayton Tune, 179 passing, a touchdown and pick. Mobile Car ran for 132 and 2 touchdowns. They put up 240 rushing yards against UCF. They're going to need to do that against Memphis, and Memphis defense isn't all that great. So that's why I'm saying this could be a shootout. That being said, I'm going to go Memphis here. Memphis' offense is one of the best in the country and has been for a few years now. All right, Texas and Iowa State, big game in the Big 12. Iowa State's 1 game away from bowl eligibility, trying to get that 6th win. Texas had a nice win against Kansas State, 27-24. Ehlinger passed for 263, a touchdown and pick. Keontae Ingram ran for 139 and 2 touchdowns. Colin Johnson, 7 catches, 110 and a touchdown. Devin Duvernay, 9 catches, 110 and a touchdown. They had 3 sacks as a defense. They had 9 penalties. They can't do that against Iowa State. Iowa State, they actually are really good. They almost beat Oklahoma. They only lost 42-41, and even then they scored the touchdown with like 24 seconds to go, and they went for 2 to try to take that lead, which I don't really agree with. A lot of people do that. I don't know what the stats are, but it seems to not work as much. It just, I don't know, whatever. That being said, they played Oklahoma really well. Brock Purdy, the quarterback, 282 passing yards, 5 touchdown passes, 55 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. He had 6 touchdowns. He almost beat Oklahoma by himself. Breece Hall ran for 110. They put up 477 yards. Defense had 3 sacks, 2 turnovers. They also had 11 penalties themselves. So it seems like both these teams might commit a bunch of penalties. I expect this to be high scoring. I'm going to go Iowa State here. Texas, I was high on them early in the season. I thought they'd be good. I still think they are good, but I also think Iowa State is better than I've been giving them credit. And so I'm going to go Iowa State here to win straight up against Texas. All right, West Virginia and Kansas State. Kansas State, they're coming off that close loss to Texas. They lost 27-24. Skylar Thompson, 253 passing, 2 touchdowns. They only had 304 total yards, though, but they did have a kick return for a touchdown. West Virginia, they haven't been doing that good this year. They're 3-6. They need to win their last 3 games to get to a bowl. They lost to Texas Tech 38-17. Austin Kendall, 355 passing, but he threw 2 picks. Jarrett Dagey came in, passed for 119 and a touchdown. Sam James, 14 catches for 223 yards as a receiver. They did put up 549 yards, but they turned over 4 times. They can't do that against Kansas State. In the end, no, I'm going to go Kansas State here. Kansas State looks pretty strong, but this may be a little bit closer. It lines Kansas State by 14. I have a hard time seeing that. Maybe 10 or so, but I think it might be a little bit closer. But I'm going to go Kansas State. All right, Central Michigan and Ball State, big for the MAC. Central Michigan is trying to get to the MAC title game. Ball State is 4-5. They want to win 2 of the last 3 to try to get just to a bowl game. Central Michigan, both teams are coming off bye. Central Michigan's last game was a 48-10 win over Northern Illinois. Quentin Dormady passed for 288 and 3 touchdowns. Kobe Lewis ran for 143 and a touchdown. Jonathan Ward ran for 138 and a touchdown. They put up 327 rushing yards, 615 total yards. The defense had 4 turnovers in that game and only allowed 251 yards. For Ball State, this year they've had one of the better passing teams in the country. At one point they were like number 8. I think they're in the top 20 or something then. However, they lost the last game. A close game to Western Michigan. They only lost 35-31. It was a back-and-forth game. Caleb Huntley ran for 120 and a touchdown. They ran for 261 as the team. They had a kick return for a touchdown, but they did have 10 penalties in that game. Central Michigan's looking really good this year. Ball State can't commit those turnovers and all those penalties. I'm gonna go. I think this will be pretty. It has Ball State by 2.5. I have a hard time seeing that. I think Central Michigan should win. I think it might be pretty close, but I'm gonna say Central Michigan wins. Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech. Virginia Tech's right there in the ACC, I think, Coastal Division race. They're like a half game behind Virginia, and they play them at the end of the year. And I think Virginia hasn't had their bye week yet or something, so it's like they're basically right there. They're playing Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is 2-7, but they have improved through the last few games. That being said, Georgia Tech still did lose to Virginia, but they only lost 33-28. Jamie Graham, 229 passing, 2 touchdowns, a pick, plus 42 rushing yards and a touchdown. Whereas Virginia Tech, they upset Wake Forest. Wake Forest is ranked. Virginia Tech won 36-17. Hendon Hooker passed for 242, ran for 69 yards and a touchdown. They put up 470 yards, but they turned it over twice, so they can't do that. Their defense played really well against one of the best offenses in the country in Wake Forest. 3 sacks, caused 2 turnovers, and only allowed 301 yards. I'm going to go Virginia Tech here. I think they've kind of turned things around. I think Virginia Tech might be a pretty big spoiler in not just the ACC, but if they can play Clemson in the ACC title game, that will be interesting. That'll have a lot of national implications on it. So I'm going to go Virginia Tech here. All right, Kentucky and Vanderbilt. Kentucky's coming off a close loss to Tennessee, 17-13. Lynn Bowden ran for 114. They only had 302 yards rushing. There wasn't much to say about their offense there. Vanderbilt got killed, though, by Florida. They lost 56-0. They had 128 total yards and 3 turnovers. I'm going to go Kentucky here, though. I think Kentucky needs to win 2 of the last 3 to try to get to a bowl. They're decent. Vanderbilt just has not looked good this year. I'm going to go Kentucky there. Big game in the Big Ten. Minnesota, off that huge victory over Penn State, vaulted them all the way up to number 8 in the last college football ranking, facing a really tough Iowa team who's ranked 20th, only had a 2-point loss against Wisconsin. Minnesota is undefeated. They beat Penn State, like I said, 31-26. Tanner Morgan, 18 of 20, 339, 3 touchdown passes. Rashad Bateman, 7 catches, 203 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Johnson, 7 catches, 104 yards and a touchdown. Defense, they had 3 turnovers, which ended up winning them the game, but they did give up 518 yards of offense. Iowa, like I said, they had that close loss against Wisconsin. Nate Stanley, though, 208 passing, 2 touchdowns. Tyrone Tracy, 5 catches, 130 and a touchdown. Defense did force 2 turnovers. Now this has, wow, I'm surprised. That has Iowa by 3. They really don't respect Minnesota. I think this may have more to do with Iowa. Iowa is strong, and even in the years when they're sort of, quote, down, I guess, they still win these games. They have these upsets. Like a few years ago, they beat Michigan, and they in their history, they are a tough team. They play really good defense all the time. And like I said, they'll come out with that 1 or 2 wins each year where that they probably shouldn't win. That being said, I really like what Minnesota's doing. I think this will be a pretty close game. I'm going to give Minnesota that edge here to win, but this is a huge game with not only Big Ten implications on it, nationally too. If Minnesota can keep winning, who knows, maybe maybe they're a Cinderella team that gets into the playoff. I don't know, but I'll give Minnesota that edge here. All right, Syracuse and Duke. Both these teams just trying to stay alive for a bowl game. Syracuse is 3-6. Duke is 4-5. Syracuse coming off a bye. They got killed by Boston College, 58-27. Tommy DeVito passed for 289 and 3 touchdowns. Tristan Jackson had 8 catches, 148 and 2 touchdowns. They put up 440 yards defense. They had 2 turnovers, but they allowed 691 yards of Boston College. Duke got killed by Notre Dame, 38-7. Quentin Harris, only 102 passing yards, a touchdown, a pick. They only had 197 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Defense forced 2 turnovers. Sorry, Duke had 2 turnovers, not 2 touchdowns. This, I think, will be pretty close. This could be kind of high scoring. It has Duke by 9.5. I think it might be a little closer than that. I would give Duke the edge. Duke has had a problem turning it over. The last few games, they only had like 2 last game, which are the lowest. They had like 4 the game before, 5 the game before, 6 the game before. Some they've been turning over a lot. Syracuse has a potent enough offense that if Duke does turn over, Syracuse can capitalize. I'm going to give Duke that edge there, but I think it'll be closer than that line. All right, Hawaii taking on UNLV. Hawaii had a big win against San Jose State, 42-40. Chevin Cordeiro actually started and played in place of Cole McDonald. He played a great game. 309 passing, 3 touchdowns, 55 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Miles Reed ran for 124 and a touchdown. JoJo Ward, 7 catches, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. They put up 509. UNLV, they lost to Colorado State, 37-17. I think they came off a bye too, so it was like 2 weeks ago. Oblad was solid. Kenyon Oblad, 280 passing, 2 touchdowns, and that was kind of about it. I expect Hawaii is 6-4, but they actually played 13 games, so they need 1 more win to get to a bowl game. And they're keeping their slim, not so slim, but their Mountain West hopes alive and maybe go into the Mountain West title game. So I think it's got Hawaii by 7. It might be more than that. I'm going to go Hawaii in this game. All right, New Mexico State 0-9 taking on 1AA Incarnate Ward. New Mexico State, they got killed by Ole Miss 41-3. They only had 193 yards. They gave up 6 of 6. I'm going to say New Mexico State gets their first win of the year against Incarnate Ward. Josh Atkins, decent quarterback for New Mexico State. Jason Nutley, decent running back. I think they should be able to at least win. All right, Wyoming, Utah State. Huge game for Mountain West. Implications, Wyoming 6-3, Utah State 5-4. They're trying to at least get bowl eligible. Wyoming's coming off a really close, heartbreaking loss to Boise State. They lost 20-17 in overtime. Those teams were very even. Yards was 2 yards away. Like Boise State had 285, Wyoming had 283. Wyoming running back Xavier Valade ran for 124 and a touchdown. Defense had they did force 2 turnovers in that game. Whereas Utah State had a last-second win against Fresno State, an exciting high-scoring game. They beat them 37-35. Jordan Love passed for 388, 2 touchdowns. CLC Mariner, 11 catches, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They put up 525. This will be interesting because Wyoming plays really good defense. Utah State plays good offense. In my head, it's got Utah State by 6. In my head, I always go offense, but Wyoming plays really good defense. I think this will be a bit of an upset against the Vegas odds. I think Wyoming may come out with this in the end. It should be a fantastic game, though. It should be really pretty close. But I'm going to go Wyoming just by a hair. All right, Stanford and Washington State. Both teams not as good as they are, possibly looking coming in. Both teams 4-5. Both teams seem to win two of their next 3 games just to get to a bowl game. This may eliminate them looking at both of their schedules the last 3 games. Stanford lost a close game to Colorado 16-13. KJ Costello 245 passing, a touchdown, a pick. They had 8 penalties in a game. They were only 3 for 10 for third down, which is huge. And Colorado scored a field goal with no time left to win. Washington State did not look very good against Cal. They lost 33-20. Anthony Gordon 407 passing, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Brandon Arconado 12 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown. Eastside Wiston 9 catches, 113 yards. They turned it over twice. I'm going to say Washington State is the team that will bounce back here. I think they'll get a win against Stanford. It should be pretty close. I don't know if it'll be especially a high scoring, maybe 31-27 kind of thing. But I'm going to go Washington State there. All right, Rice 0-9 playing Middle Tennessee State, who's 3-6. Middle Tennessee, they actually have a pretty good shot of even making a bowl because they play Rice, Old Dominion, 2 of the worst teams in the country. And their last game is against a very much improved Western Kentucky team, which could go either way. So Middle Tennessee, Rice is coming off a bye. They lost 20-7 against Marshall. They've actually played really good defense against pretty much everybody. They lost 27 against Marshall. They lost to Baylor only like 21-13. They've kept pretty good offenses in check most of their year. They only had 231 yards. They had 3 sacks in that game. Rice did. Middle Tennessee State, they're coming off a bye. They lost their last game against Charlotte 34-20. Asher O'Hara, the quarterback, ran for 142 touchdowns, or passed for 142 touchdowns, ran for 148 and a touchdown. They ran for 193. They had 2 turnovers as well. I'm going to say Middle Tennessee State because he had a pretty close win here. Asher O'Hara is a good dual threat quarterback for Middle Tennessee, and they can put up just enough points to win. So I got Middle Tennessee there. All right, Louisiana Lafayette taking on South Alabama. Louisiana Lafayette's coming for a huge victory over Coastal Carolina, 48-7. Levi Lewis, 26-30, 296 passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing. They put up 564 yards. They only allowed 236 yards. Whereas South Alabama, they lost on a late field goal to Texas State, 30-28. Desmond Trotter, 164 passing, 2 touchdowns. They did run for 184 yards, and they forced 2 turnovers. Louisiana Lafayette, they're 7-2. They're trying to get to that Sun Belt championship game. They've looked really good all season long on offense, their whole team. South Alabama, not quite as much. I'm going to go, the line is Louisiana by 28. That's kind of high. But I do think Louisiana will win maybe not by 20, maybe by 20 to 24, something like that. So I'll go Louisiana Lafayette. All right, Southern Miss and Texas San Antonio. Pretty big game in this USA. Southern Miss trying to get to this USA title game. UTSA, I'm not sure of the stats. They might be kind of in it, but they're 4-5. They want to win 2 of the last 3 maybe to get to a bowl. Southern Miss, they beat the class of the conference the last couple of years, UAB, and they killed them 37-2. Jack Abraham, 164 passing, 2 touchdowns. They did it a lot on the ground, and with their defense, they ran for 161. Normally, Southern Miss can pass it all over the yard. Well, defensively, they had 4 sacks, 2 turnovers, an interception return for a touchdown, and only allowed 173 yards. UTSA is coming off a close victory against Old Dominion, 24-23. Lowell Narcisse passed for 240 and touchdown. Sincere McCormick ran for 137, 2 touchdowns. Zachary Franklin, 6 catches, 134 yards. Defense had 3 sacks and 2 turnovers. This game, they got Southern Miss by 16.5. It depends if Southern Miss can get their offense going. It seems a little high to me, but I will say Southern Miss gets the victory in the end. They look like a really good CSA contender and just a good team overall this year. All right, then you go to the SEC. LSU Tigers taking on Ole Miss, the #1 LSU. Huge victory against Alabama, 46-41. Joe Burrow may have won himself a Heisman. 393 passing, 3 touchdowns, plus 64 rushing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran for 103 and 3 touchdowns and had 9 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown receiving. Jamar Chase, 6 catches, 141 touchdown, 559 total. Ole Miss is coming off a big win against New Mexico State, 41-3. John Rice Plumlee passed for 177 and 2 touchdowns. Snoop Carter ran for 109 and 2 touchdowns. That's wrong. Plumlee, my bad. Ran for 177. They ran for 447 yards as a team. They put up 606 yards of offense. Defense had 4 sacks, only allowed 193. Defensively, they're not going to do that against LSU. Offensively, Ole Miss has shown they can move the ball pretty well all year against kind of almost everybody pretty decently. And LSU, yeah, with Alabama, but LSU's their defense isn't as good. They've given up quite a bit. This would be a huge upset if Ole Miss could win. Ole Miss wants to win two their last. Well, they're 4-6, so they need to win their last 2 games. I don't see that happening though. I think LSU might be on their way to a national title. I'm gonna go LSU in that one. All right, Cincinnati and USF. Cincinnati, huge game for them. They want to win the American Athletic. They want right now the highest ranked Group of 5 team. If they can finish that way, they can make a New Year's Six bowl. USF did not look good against Temple. However, they are 4-5. They need to win 2 of the last 3 games to go bowling. That being said, USF's last 3 games are maybe the toughest in the country. Cincinnati beat UConn 48-3. Desmond Ridder 136 passing, 2 touchdowns, plus 94 rushing. Jared Dokes actually ran for 123 and a touchdown. They put up 507. They had 5 sacks on defense. Only allowed 218. USF, they lost 17-7 to Temple. The defense actually played well. Jordan McLeod 225 and a touchdown, but they only had 286 total yards. Defense allowed 3 sacks and allowed 10 points. Temple got a fumble return for a touchdown that made it 17-7. I would love for it's in South Florida. I'd love for South Florida to get that upset. I don't see it happening. I think Cincinnati should win. It may be closer than people will think, but I think USF will lose the game. All right, then the last one for these midday games: Air Force and Colorado State. Air Force, unfortunately, they didn't play last week. Their game against New Mexico was postponed because a player for New Mexico died last week, and they postponed that. So Air Force, their last game actually was a 17-13 win, a big win over Army. Timothy Jackson ran for 155 and a touchdown. They ran for 328. Army, Air Force had a goal line stand against Army late in the game that won it. And because Army missed an extra point after a touchdown earlier in the game, it made it 17-13, which forced Army to have to go for a touchdown on the goal line, whereas Army could have just kicked the field goal late and maybe send it to overtime. But Air Force had a big win there. Air Force has a huge turnaround and trying to get to a Mountain West title game. They're 7-2 overall and 4-1 in the Mountain West. Colorado State, they're a 4-5 team. They got to win 2 of the last 3 to get to a bowl. They're coming off a bye. Their last game was a 37-17 win over UNLV. Patrick O'Brien passed for 234. Warren Jackson, 6 catches, 133. Defense had 5 sacks. They did have 11 penalties. They can't do that against our Air Force. I think this will be a pretty close game. Kind of 2 opposite offenses. Air Force is the triple option run all the time. Colorado State likes to throw it around a lot. I'm going to go Air Force in the end to edge out Colorado State, though. But I think it's got Air Force by 10.5. That sounds about right. I think it might be pretty close and about that. All right, those are my midday games. Check out for my primetime ones later and all my other videos. Peace.